Hello everyone, welcome to this Microsoft Azure Fundamentals Training AZ900 certification. So first let's look at the agenda, then let's move on with the session. We're going to start off with the introduction to cloud computing. Moving on, we'll be looking at what is cloud computing, types of it, and then we'll start off with Microsoft Azure and we'll look at all the basic stuff. So first we'll learn how to create an Azure account, only then we can start off with it, and then we'll learn how to access it, and then we'll start off with Azure services. So coming to Azure services, there are a number of services. We'll look at them, the basic domains of them, and after that we'll look into Azure compute services, which are virtual machines, and Azure app services. So there are many more compute services, but these are the most used or the most popular compute services. So that's why we have included them in this particular course. Okay guys, now let us begin with this session. So first let us start off with the introduction to cloud computing. So first of all, why cloud computing? So let us look at that. So before cloud computing came into existence, so there was a guy who wanted to start a company. So he was working on it, he invests some money in the company and he buys some servers, and he has bought some servers right now. The thing is, he has developed an application or a website for his company, and he bought some servers and installed that application inside these servers. Okay. Now he launches the application and everybody are able to use it and he's happy about it. So to be simple, we are going through a storyline here and understand how it worked before and how cloud computing changed the game of servers. Okay, so now the thing is, he invested some money to buy some servers so that he could launch his application in those servers. Now, so there is this company and the company is growing fine and he's getting a lot of money. So he buys more servers and it is back to use. That is, more people are using the application right now because there is more servers and the application can handle a lot of traffic. But suddenly, due to a high amount of traffic, let's say there were 3 servers before, now he has 6 servers. So there were 2 people using it before, now there are 4. But suddenly there are 2000 people using the application because of the hit. So once the traffic grows that drastically, servers which are bought and set up, that is manually configured servers, cannot scale automatically because they are physical. You will have to buy them again and configure them again so that they can go back to use without crashing the application. So right now the problem is, he has servers, but due to high traffic, the application is crashing and nobody is able to use it. So now he is confused and he doesn't know what to do because he has invested in those servers, he has bought them, launched the application, but now his application is doing really well, but the application is not able to withstand the traffic because of these servers. So now he's getting an idea. So he's asking to the maintenance team to fix these servers. Okay, so the maintenance team have fixed the server right now. Okay, so now he has to pay them bills. Okay, now what happened is, you can see now, so now there are no users. So coming back here, so the maintenance team has fixed the servers, he has paid them the money. Okay, now it is back to use. So there are 6 servers right now, again the same number of servers which were available, and you can see there are 4 users. So let's consider it as 4000 users. Okay, so right now suddenly the interest in this application has dipped and people started deleting it from their phone. So now there is 1000 people gone, 2000, 3000, or maybe there are only like 200 or 300 users right now currently using it. So let's say it is night time and nobody is using the application. Now all of these servers are sitting idle. So these servers are still costing him money, but they are sitting there idle, unused. So if they are unused, then there is no use of having that servers right there, because he only needs the servers whenever there is a use for those servers, because his application is running on it. Only if people are using the application is going to need the server. So obviously whenever there is less traffic, he doesn't need all of these 6 servers. So if one server can accommodate 100 users and currently his traffic is 200 users, now 2 servers can accommodate it. Now there are 600 users, he has 6 servers, again now 600 users, 6 servers can accommodate it. And finally, if what if there are 1,000 users right now? Now again, he'll have to go and buy 3 more servers, configure it, and then put it back to use. So right now, what was the problem with the on-premise setup? Okay, first, scalability. Increase hardware user as demand increases, increase staff to maintain the servers. So this is one big problem. Whenever the traffic increases, you will have to buy more servers. So whenever there is more servers, he need a lot of staff to maintain those servers. And then high cost, he has to put in money even before his application is out there, even before the review is out. He invests a lot of money on servers, and the server needs to be managed and monitored continuously because sometimes the server might crash. So yeah, and then also slow data recovery. So let's say you want to recover some particular information from that server. So there are multiple people querying the database so to get some information, but when there are a lot of requests, obviously it will slow down the data recovery. So it takes more time to recover the data, requires high budgets and resources. That is, even let's say if the servers are damaged, he cannot get the information elsewhere because his only backup is on those servers. So these are the 4 disadvantages of not using cloud computing. Now, if you use cloud computing, what is the advantage? So scalability, you can easily scale up servers. So let's say you have 5 servers right now for 500 users. Suddenly your customer base has went up to 1,000. Now cloud, that is Azure, will give you 5 more servers to accommodate that traffic. And let's say suddenly your traffic goes lesser than 300. So now suddenly Azure will automatically reduce the number of servers to 3 so that it can accommodate 3 users. So right now you're only paying for that 3 servers, not the deleted 7 servers. So your cost is also reduced. So you will have to only pay for the resources you use. Also, the servers or all the resources and servers are maintained by Azure themselves. You don't need to maintain, you don't need to monitor them. It is all taken care by Microsoft Azure, so you will not have to do anything else other than maintaining your application as well as making your application better. And finally, data recovery. Obviously, fast data recovery because it is cloud and you can store your data in various zones and various locations and recover data from any of that location at any time and anywhere in the world with a device connected to the internet. So this solves the problem. And scalability is solved, cost is solved, server and data recovery problem is solved. Okay guys, now let us check out what is cloud computing. So to start off with it, okay, so now let us see the definition of it and then let's move ahead. So cloud computing is a delivery of computing services like servers, storage, databases and many more over the internet to offer faster innovation, flexible resources and economies of scale. So I'll make it easier for you to understand this particular sentence. So cloud computing delivers computing services. So let's say you want servers or databases, they provide it to you over the internet. You gain access through the internet, you pay for what you use, and you can take up how many ever resources you want and also pay for that and also reduce it whenever you want. So it is economical, it is faster and reliable. Okay, so now cloud computing is basically accessing and using various computing services and resources via the internet. So you are the user, there are the data centers, Azure data centers. So you are the user trying to access something in the Azure data center, for example, launching a server or launching a database or trying to store a file in a bucket. So now you need cloud computing, which is the mediator or the web service which lets you access the data centers, the Azure data centers. So you're the user, you use cloud computing to access it. So now moving ahead, we'll look at the types of cloud computing because we understood what it is. It is using a web service to access certain features or resources in the data center. It can be any data center, but right now as this is the Azure cloud course, it is the Azure data center. It could be the AWS data center or the Google Cloud's data center. So types of cloud computing. Under that, there are 2 types, that is service models and deployment models. So under service models, there are 3 different services We'll look at that. And under deployment models, again, there are multiple models. First, we'll start off with service models, then move ahead to deployment models. So the first service model is IaaS, which is basically infrastructure as a service. So we'll look into detail in the later part. So right now I'll just introduce it to you. So it is infrastructure as a service, then comes platform as a service, then comes software as a service. And under deployment models, there is public cloud, and then private cloud, and finally hybrid cloud. Okay, now let's start off with a more detailed description of these service models, and after that we'll move on to deployment models. So first, infrastructure as a service. So infrastructure as a service means delivering the whole infrastructure of a general computer as a service. Basically, this means providing you a server, a database server, storage units, everything over the cloud platform. So providing you the entire infrastructure to host your application is basically infrastructure as a service. So in IaaS, you get complete access to the server's operating system. That is, you can install whatever you want. You can put your application over there. You can delete all the contents of it. You can back up it. You can do anything you want. You can increase the RAM. You can increase the number of virtual CPUs as well. So this is providing you the control over the infrastructure. And then there is platform as a service. So in platform as a service, you don't get the access to the whole operating system. Instead, you already have a environment set up. So let's say you want to host a PHP application or a Java application. So let's say right now you want to host a PHP application. So now instead of launching a server, installing PHP, installing the required softwares, and then putting your application and configuring it, you can get an already set up environment which can host PHP applications. So now using platform as a service, you can create a pass like that, you can create an environment like that, and you just have to upload your code, which is more than enough to run your applications. And finally, software as a service, and this is the most commonly used service type in the entire cloud industry because software is everywhere. So let's say you use Gmail is a software as a service. You might use Google Docs, it is software as a service. You might use Dropbox, it is again software as a service. So a software as a service where you get access to the software but not to the environment or the server's operating system. It is just the application given to you. Every single website or every single Android application or iOS application is a software as a service because it is hosted somewhere in a cloud environment and you are getting access to it. So that is software as a service. And now let us look at deployment models. So public cloud. So public cloud refers to the standard cloud computing. So Azure is a public cloud. To consider it, it is a public cloud. You can also use it as a private cloud, but normally we call it the public cloud. So AWS, Azure, GCP, all are public cloud providers. So public cloud providers refer to the standard cloud computing, which means that the cloud provider offers resources such as virtual machines, storage, applications to the general public over the internet. So I can create an account and start using their servers. It is not required that I should have a company's domain and use that to get access to Azure and then I can start launching servers. That is not required. You will just have to use your email ID and then use your debit or credit card to get access to it and then start off with it right away. And then private cloud. So private cloud is a pool of resources meant exclusively for a single organization. This can be the on-premise setup as well as a private cloud using a cloud provider like Azure. So if it is on-premise setup, you have all your servers and all the servers is yours because you bought it, you configured it, and it is your network. So that is your private cloud. Or you can get certain services from Azure and then you can set it privately. You can set it up privately. So for example, let's say you want your website to be seen by everybody, then that can be given public access. But if you want to store some mission critical data or code, you can use a private cloud where nobody else is going to be allowed to use that hardware. Only you can use that hardware. Okay, so finally, hybrid cloud. So we look at hybrid cloud after looking at this example. So a public bus is accessible to anyone. So let's say there are 10 people, so all of them want to go. They can go in the same bus, which is the public cloud, use the same public cloud and pay the fees for that. So for example, you are going in a bus. So I want to go to 3 stops from here. So I pay the fee for that. But you might want to go 10 stops from here. So your fee might be more. So like that, I'm launching 3 servers, you're launching 10 servers. So I'll have to only pay for 3, you'll have to pay for 10. So this is how public cloud works. And a car is basically owned by a single person. So it is not meant for public, it is for that particular person alone. So he will pay for the petrol, the maintenance, he'll do everything for that car. But for the bus, you don't need to do anything. You just have to pay the money for the bus fare, and that's it. So to be summarized, so bus, considering it as public cloud, it is accessible for everyone. It is meant for general public. You will have to pay for only what you use. And car is the private cloud. It is owned by you. It is only for you. You can do whatever you want with it. And again, you'll have to pay for everything. So as told, public cloud, and this is private cloud. Finally, hybrid cloud. Hybrid cloud is a combination of both of these, as well as private and public, because most of the companies go by this. So let's say Amazon will also use a public cloud and a private cloud, or any company you name it, they will have a private and a public cloud. This is the most commonly used deployment model. Hey guys, now let's start off with what is Microsoft Azure. So in the last session, we looked at the various deployment models. So now let us start off with the cloud itself, that is Microsoft Azure. So we're going to learn Microsoft Azure in this course. So first, let us understand what it is before moving on. So Microsoft Azure is a cloud computing platform offered by Microsoft. So it offers various scalable cloud services. So we already understood what are cloud services. So now Microsoft Azure is a cloud provider who provides those services. And now establishment, it started off, so they announced Microsoft Azure and launched their first service in February 1st, 2010. And it is right now a widely recognized cloud provider. So Microsoft Azure is used by 90% of the Fortune 500 companies. This fact was stated by Forbes itself. So then it's also cost effective because it is free to start off with, and also you don't need to pay an upfront cost to start off with Azure, as well as you only have to pay for whatever you use, and you don't need to pay for every single service you have launched. So let's say you have launched a service and used it only for 2 hours, and then you don't use it, you stop it or delete it. You don't need to pay for it. You just have to pay for those 2 hours you've used. And then language support, yeah, it supports a lot of languages. So suppose C#, Node.js, Java, and again PHP, Ruby on Rails. It supports a lot, so that you can see. And after that, it is also the most highly available cloud provider in the world. It has data centers in 54 different regions across the world. So these are the 5 reasons. So when it started, it is widely recognized, it's cost effective, language support, and availability zones. These are some reasons for you to start off with Microsoft Azure. Okay, so as I already told, there are 54 zones. So here you can see, so these are some portrayals. So the blue dots are already available. The dotted lines, so these lines are being built, and so these diamond shapes are availability zones. So you can see here West US data center 1, and this is West US 2, that is this is the second availability zone. So like that, there can be multiple availability zones in multiple regions, and you can see here there are a lot of various things. You can just look at this image, or you can go to the Microsoft website and check out all the global regions. Okay, so we've checked out what is Microsoft Azure and the reasons to start off with it. So now let us look at the brief of Microsoft Azure services. So these are the top 4 highly used Microsoft Azure services. So Microsoft Azure offers various web scale cloud services which are grouped together on the basis of different business usage. So those groups are called domains, and the domains are over here. So we are going to look at the 4 main domains which are used. So first is compute. So compute is basically a computing need, that is a computer. So let's say you want to host your application. So obviously you will need a server. So Microsoft Azure provides you compute services as servers. And then networking. So using networking, you can make your server publicly available or a private server. So you can do various things using networking, and Microsoft Azure again provides a lot of networking capabilities. So we'll discuss that in the upcoming modules. So right now you'll just have to have a basic idea of it, what we are going to learn. So compute is providing computing services. Networking is basically making your application public or private by providing a network. So let's say you have your cloud. So inside that there are 2 applications. One application is for the public, one application is for your company. So if it is for your company, you only want that application to be available in the IP addresses within the company's range, but not to the general public. So that you can set up using the virtual network provided by Microsoft Azure. So one application will be internet facing, one would be internal. So you can do that using networking. And then storage. Yeah, Microsoft Azure provides various storage services to store audio files, images, to store JSON files, to store documents. You can store anything you want. There are various different types of storage as well. And then finally, databases. So it's not finally, there are so many different domains. So we are just covering the top 4 domains which are used. So databases. Yeah, so any application will require a database because most of the applications need a database to store the information. So Microsoft Azure provides relational databases, NoSQL databases, even data warehouses. So you can choose any type of database you want and use it for your application. Okay guys, so we've learned what is Microsoft Azure and the various domains. Now in the next session, we'll be looking at how to create a Microsoft Azure account. So only if you create an Azure account, you can start off with practicing it. So let's get started. First, I'll explain to you the steps to do that. And after that, let us create a Microsoft Azure account so that you can follow those steps and you can as well create an account to start off with this course. Okay, so these are the basic steps. So first we'll have to go to the Azure page and click on create new account, and after that choose the banner called start for free, and after that you can use your email address and the password for your new Azure account. So after clicking on create my Microsoft account, so if you already have a Microsoft account, you can use the same email ID and password, and then you will receive a code. So it will be in your inbox, that is your mail ID's inbox. Use that, enter your phone number for your account. You will again receive an OTP. Use that, fill in the forms, and also you'll have to provide a card detail. So it can be a debit or a credit card. So you won't be charged in the free period because they'll provide you free credits up to 13,000 rupees. You can basically use any service within that quota, and after that quota ends, then you will start getting charged. And then agree to the terms and conditions, then click sign up. And after that you will be signed up, then you can start off with Microsoft Azure. So this is the steps to create a Microsoft Azure account. So we've seen how to create the Microsoft account. I hope you would have created one right now. So now let's discuss the various ways you can access Microsoft Azure. One is the portal. So portal is the website which we can use to launch Azure services. Next is PowerShell, Microsoft PowerShell. So you can use that. And then also the Azure CLI. So let's see one by one. So as told, Microsoft provides various ways to access it. So I prefer the graphical user interface and sometimes the CLI. So you can choose one of them. So if you prefer the command line or the PowerShell, if you're already good at Windows PowerShell, you can go ahead with it. So there is nothing to stop it. So you can choose any one of them and use any one of these ways to access. So first, the portal is a web-based unified console. So you can see every single service there. You can create users, you can create resources, you can build, monitor, and maintain applications. And then coming to PowerShell. So to log into PowerShell, you will have to authenticate to it. So it is a built on .NET framework and lets users control Azure's robust functionality from the command line. So you should have PowerShell first. So you'll have it in your Windows system or you'll have to install it. So after that, you should connect with your Azure account. We'll see that later. So then Azure CLI, again, this is that is PowerShell. This is Bash. Azure CLI is a cross-platform command line tool. So that is used to manage and monitor Microsoft Azure platform and services. So it is again an alternative of PowerShell. If you don't want to use PowerShell or you don't know to use PowerShell, you can use your CLI. Okay, so we've seen the various ways to access it. We'll see one by one later. So right now you understood the basics of it. Okay, guys, in this we'll be looking at Azure resources and subscriptions. So first let's start off with subscriptions. So a subscription is basically an active agreement between the user and Microsoft. For example, if you use Netflix, you have a monthly subscription. You pay this amount of money, you can use Netflix for this month. So if you do not pay the money for a particular month, you'll not be able to use it. So that is basically an agreement. So like that, you get a subscription in Microsoft Azure as well. So this agreement provides the users the needed access to provision services and resources. So only using the subscription, you will be able to create something in Microsoft Azure, that is to launch servers or to use the resources provided by Microsoft Azure. So you can see this image. So end users, you can use anyway, that is the portal, CLI or PowerShell. So you will already be logged into your account, that is your Microsoft Azure account. So that account will have a subscription, because when you create an account, you will be given a subscription. So that subscription will allow you to access any services inside the Microsoft Azure cloud platform. So you can use analytics, you can use compute services, database services. So you can see here Azure subscriptions are associated with Azure accounts. So Azure accounts are where the user can track the usage and billing of their services. So you might have multiple services, but you will get a monthly bill. So using the Azure account, you can track that. And Azure accounts are also used to access the tools that are used to access Azure services. That is, so Azure accounts are basically, it is your account in which you can use multiple services. So inside that services, those services might access other services, or you can use multiple tools to access those services. So your Azure account will keep a track of all of your Azure activity. And also you can have multiple subscriptions in the same Azure account. Okay, so now resource group. Resource group in Azure is simply a collection of related Azure assets or Azure services that belong to an application or workload together. So why do we need resource groups? I'll explain that. So let's say you have let's consider two applications. One is a food delivery application. One is a doctor appointment application. So these two are different applications. They have different servers, databases, and storage units. So again, these two applications have everything separately. Now, if you launch all of these services together and have them in a single place, you will have a huge confusion of which server is for which particular application. So instead, you can create two resource groups, and the first resource group can be used for the food delivery application. So any number of servers, databases, storage unit, analytics servers, so any services you used will be under that resource group. And for your other application, doctor appointment application, you can have another resource group inside which all the services are available. So this will be very easy to identify. So let's say you want to see all the resources used by your delivery application. You can go to resource groups and open the resource group which is associated with this application, and you can find out every single asset or resource used by this application. So that's what given here. For example, the following diagram shows that the user has created a resource group for LOB application. So for all the Azure services that belong to this application will be inside this resource group. And next one is IaaS workload, that is infrastructure as a service workload. Then there is an IaaS workload resource group that contains pair of virtual machines contained in a virtual network with a MySQL database. So these two are different resource groups. They are trying to convey the same thing using an example. So there are two resource groups used for different applications so that you can easily differentiate them. And Azure subscriptions and resources. So let's look at the hierarchy here. So under the Azure subscription, you can create multiple resource groups. Inside resource groups, you can create any number of Azure resources. So this is the basic hierarchy. So relationship between Azure subscription and resources. Every single resource will be deployed within a resource group. So there cannot be any application or any service without being inside a resource group in Microsoft Azure. Let's say you have 10 virtual machines. All of those virtual machines will be in a resource group, and that resource group will obviously be inside a subscription. So every resource group has to be associated with the Azure subscription. Yes, users can create multiple resource group within one Azure subscription. Again, this is true.